Hi,
Hello.
Debbie.
Hi, Debbie.
We're back.
We're back. We meet again. Hi, guys. Welcome to the I Have a Feeling YouTube channel, where we foster a safe space to talk, to have tough conversations. Last week, actually, as we speak, the video that we were uploaded is live now, and where we kind of talked about our relationship
Scary.
and like, I know
Mm.
it's exciting. It's also really
It
scary.
is really scary.
I'm a little nervous, but at the same time, I'm also really excited. Like, it's a little scary because you're like, there's a little bit of a fear of like feedback and
That's it. Yeah,
like
I'm like,
negative feedback, I
yeah,
guess.
exactly. Which I guess if
Oh,
you
you're
throw
supposed to talk this
if you throw yourself out there, I know I'm always weird on the
way.
mic.
It's
The
like
mic makes me
completely
feel really
backwards.
uncomfortable anyway to begin
Uh,
with, because we have to hold it close. But yeah, but if you throw yourself out there, you have to be willing to take what you get, I guess.
so true,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're really excited about that video going live. It's just also a little bit scary. But yeah, so if you haven't seen that video, go ahead and check that out. But yes. So welcome to I Have a Feeling. I'm Allie.
And I'm Deborah.
And we're here to, this week, we're here to talk about um, relational hurt, specifically in romance.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we decided on this
Yeah,
week.
that's we had thrown that one around. I think that's a weird one, kind of from a mother-daughter standpoint, don't you think? The romantic part of it's always hard to talk to your daughter or your mother about anything that has to do with romance.
Oh, yeah. I remember. The only thing I would tell you is like if I had a crush on someone, but I never really told you a whole lot else until I was a bit older. And I felt like, I don't know, it took me so long to be able to, because yeah, it is really weird from like a mom to a
And
daughter
it's weird because
or
we're
just
both we're
parents.
both women,
Yeah.
we both know that each other has romantic relationships, but yet on the other hand, you don't even like can't believe that it's actually true. Like I can't see that side of you ever.
Right? It's gross,
It is. It
yeah.
feels really, really
There's
strange.
some part of it that's kinda gross, there's some part of it that's kind of but
But then here it is,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there it
But I
is.
think that, we wanted to specifically talk about, um, the pain that can come with romantic relationships and some of the things that we've been through.
Right.
We've both had our fair share of, um, like, breakups or being kind of burned by a significant other, and so we kinda wanted to delve into that conversation, um, and talk about some of the things that we've learned over having been in different relationships. Obviously, you're older than I am. You're married.
Yeah,
Um,
I am married and
yeah,
I am older.
and but I am much younger. Um, and so
And
we're
single.
yeah, and single, and so we're coming from two very different perspectives. But I think that I think too, like a lot of the dating world is very different from when you were my age to
Well, it
now.
is. Yeah, it is. And it's kind of sad in a way because there was so much intentional behavior that had to happen in order to date. When you were dating, like say in the 80s, when I would have been probably your age, around your age or something, because you had to actually show up at somebody's house. You had to knock on their door. You had to introduce yourself to to their mother. You had to, or their father, you had to present yourself in some kind of way. And I think anymore, so much of that is gone. And it's, you're really kind of on your own. I feel like right now, you guys dating are almost on your own. Like you could go out on a date and I would not know what they looked like. I would not know what they drove. I would not know who they were or anything because there would be none of that like chit chat that would happen on the doorstep, or right as you shook somebody's hand. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I think it also depends on the person. I think
True.
I've dated guys who have come to the door.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also I feel like I feel like when it's the first date, I feel like you don't want to talk to them. I feel like you're like, "Ah, no, it's fine. Like just go." Like that's what I've experienced. Like when I've had multiple different like um over a span of years, I've had multiple different like
That's true.
people come to the door and like they're going to take me out or whatever. We're going on a date and I feel like you're just like, "Okay, yeah, go." Like, I feel like you think it's awkward.
Well, I guess it is a little bit awkward, I suppose, because I don't know if they're anybody that's going to be sticking around. I hate to like make a connection with somebody that is just like somebody that you're just dating one time. I don't know. Maybe because of the way things are, it is a little bit awkward. Maybe I've fallen into the current thinking of just go quickly.
Run, just go. I don't
Just
wanna
run.
see him, I
I
don't wanna
know.
look at him. Well, I think a
Yeah.
lot of times too, you're just not prepared for
For
company and stuff,
company, I
so
think that's more it. Yeah. That I'm not looking for company at the moment. So you guys are just okay, off so I can do whatever I'm doing.
yeah, you're like, "I'm busy."
Yeah. You go ahead, take
But
care of your date.
I get it, yeah. Um, yeah, so I think it is very different, but I think, though, we've been able to relate a lot over some of the things that have hurt us, collectively, and so I've been through, a couple different breakups. One that was probably the most significant to me, and we can talk about, breakups as well as just actively being in a relationship
Right.
where there's hurt.
Mhm.
Because even if you're not necessarily breaking up with that person's still going to hurt you. Like there are still things that are going to happen, not that might happen, that will happen.
You mean like ongoing hurt in a relationship that you're in? Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
that's for sure.
both of those things can happen. There can be hurt just based on um, like it can be hurt and then things end, or it can be hurt and things keep going.
Right.
And I've experienced both. I got out of a 2-year or 3-year relationship. Still don't know because that first year was like, oh, we're like dating, but we're
But we're
not.
not really together. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
which
not official.
yeah, and I'm a commitment queen, so that's not very comfortable for me.
Yeah.
But I tried to stick it out and I did, because this person was much different, and it didn't have the same thoughts about dating that I did. So we dated for, I guess officially we had dated for 2 years. And in that time, because that was like my longest
Right.
relationship.
And in your adult life too, when you were a
Yeah,
kid, like when you were a high school relationship or something like that.
yeah.
That was your real grown up, relationship long term anyway.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
kind of the first big one. Um, there were a lot of things that I experienced for the first time in that relationship, and one of those being like realizing that I care a lot for this person. I love this person, um, but it's not gonna work out.
Yeah.
And
The reality of the situation, like, can I live with this for the rest of my life kind of
And I think
thing.
some of the things that happened that made me realize that, um, were it be getting hurt over things that were, um, big to me. Like,
Mhm.
I thought they were really hurtful, I thought that they were really significant in our relationship, and he did not care at all.
Right.
And so things like I have a really big problem with people who are really flaky and people who tend to be really, um, unpredictable, and it's hard to get time with them and stuff like that. Like I know we're not going to spend 24/7 together and I don't
Right.
want that either.
Right.
I need my space as well, but I think that he was so on the opposite side of that, like tried so hard to be as elusive as possible.
Yeah. That was part of the personality, I think, was that. That was
Yeah.
always kind of out of reach.
And at first, that's like exciting and that's
Yeah.
interesting and he's so aloof and I wanted to like be the person that he would go on a date with because I was special enough and I was significant enough. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of women kind of fall into that category or
I
fall
would agree
into
with
that.
that.
I don't want maybe not category, but fall into that kind of feeling of like
I'm going to be the one. I'm
I'm
going
gonna
to
be
be
the
the one
one.
that loves him enough to I don't know, make him feel secure or make him feel secure sorry.
You're okay.
This is already weird to hell to the microphone. Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm the one that's going to be able to give him what he needs in order to be a fully well-rounded person. Like
Yeah.
or a good guy for a relationship or whatever. I'm going to be the one that changes him. I'm going to love him enough or I'm going to be a good enough influence or I don't know in order to make him somebody different. I think we go in often thinking, I really like this guy. If I could just alter a couple things about
Oh
him,
my god.
like
So
just tweak a couple little
accurate.
things, like he would be just he would be
If I could, like,
good.
tweak him just a little
Yeah, there's
bit,
like
yeah.
five things
That's
that are
such a
good and
terrible
like
thing
two and a
to
half things that need to go.
That's so
It
true.
is, it is.
And that's such an awful way to think because the poor guy, like, there is although I experienced a lot of hurt in this last relationship that I was in, I did have a lot of expectations of him that I if I had looked at his like, if I had looked at his personality, if I had watched the way he interacted with his friends,
Right,
with his family, with the people that were closest to him, if I had actually taken the time to step back and look at that for more than 5 seconds,
right,
I think I would have avoided the relationship entirely because he was never going to mix with me.
yeah,
Like, I am very family oriented. I'm
yeah,
very consistent. I'm very committed, very loyal, like all those things. And that's not to toot my own horn. Like I have my own list of problems as well. Like I'm clingy, like I'm really emotionally intense. I can get really
you can be
stubborn.
mean
Yeah, I can
sometimes.
be mean. Like when I'm like hurt, I get mad and like I have my own list of things. But if I'm just looking at like the kind
Yeah,
of qualities of like I'm looking for loyalty, I'm looking for consistency, all that kind of, he was none of those things.
yeah,
Absolutely not.
right. Well, and I think unfortunately that those are because you're not like that, they also make for interesting. I
Mm.
mean, if somebody's exactly like you, it's not so interesting. And so it is likely that you're going to look for somebody that doesn't have the exact same qualities as you had. You just I think that all some of the old thinking I think really does apply here, like how somebody treats their mother, whether it's a female or a male, how they treat their mother or how they treat their father, how they talk about them. It matters because that's how they feel about family. And if they're really disrespectful or if they're not connected to them at all or that kind of thing. It does say something about if you're looking to have a family with them or considering being in a long-term relationship with them, I think that you need to look at that. That is something that and it's not judging, it's actually just reasonable to see, okay, I want a family. Is this person family oriented? That's all you're doing is I think just taking into account this is what I want. Are they the same way? Are they looking for the same thing? It does it show that they are looking for kind of the same things, I
Right.
feel like.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, and like even if because I understand that there's some people who don't have a relationship with their dad, don't have a relationship with their mom, like or maybe their parents like passed away
Right.
when
Oh,
they were
that's
young or
different. Yeah.
and those are different
Yeah.
circumstances. But I will say like I still want to look at in those circumstances of like, okay, I don't have a great relationship with my parents.
Mhm.
The person that I dated, perfect example. He didn't have a good relationship with his parents because there was a lot of like hurt there.
Right.
And that's not the part that bothers me because a lot of people have that and that's very
Well,
common.
we had that and we
We
still got over it. Yeah, and we're still
right.
okay.
Yeah,
So,
well, and it is possible, but I don't
mhm.
think you necessarily like if there's a lot of hurt there, it's ongoing and that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily think that you have to be close with your parents.
No, not at
But I
all.
do think that the way that you talk about them when the subject comes
That's
up
what I'm saying.
and
Yeah.
the way that you like navigate that relationship is more important than I originally thought.
Yeah. It's just the respectfulness, I think, of the position of mother or father, I think it's easy. You can be respectful. You can not have a good relationship. You can have a lot of pain and hurt and even anger or whatever and still speak respectfully about that person. I think that it's not always easy to do because you are hurt, but I think that we should at least try that. I think it says something about somebody who's willing to, trash their mom or trash their dad in front of somebody they don't know very well. They're just starting to date.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
seems kind of,
Yeah. Well, and even beyond parents and stuff like that, because that those relationships can get really complicated. But
yeah,
also friends. Like, if again, if I had looked, it kind of makes me mad because it's like if I had
yeah, I
looked
know.
for 5 minutes at the way that he was with my friends, or not well, my friends he barely ever talked to, but with his own friends,
Right.
um, I think I would have realized that this is not going to work.
Yeah.
And that it's just not going to be a good situation. And I ended up experiencing a lot of pain
Yeah.
because I was trying to force something to work.
Right.
And I think there was a lot of like, even after we broke up, and me trying to learn kind of how to forgive him as I retrospectively like looked back and was realizing, oh, he did so many things that actually were really awful, you
Yeah.
know? Um, and again, not to say that I didn't do things too, but as I was kind of looking back at everything, I was allowing him to treat me not well
Right.
for a majority of our relationship.
Right.
And it in my head I was thinking like, well, that's just him. Like he's just kind of aloof.
Yeah. I don't want to
He's
judge. It's part of who he is, and
Yeah,
yeah.
he's been hurt a lot. Like, I understand that sometimes he's gonna blow up at me over really tiny things, or sometimes like, he might um, say something to me that's actually very insulting. And
Right.
I should just take it because he's been hurt before.
Right.
And I think that's so unfair to me, but that's also so unfair to him because it doesn't allow him to grow. Like he doesn't get challenged on
It's
anything.
true. That's true. I think that's a really good point. That do you challenge somebody on things like that, or is that selfish? And I think that a lot of times as women we think we're being selfish. Like we're being selfish when we stand up for ourselves, when we say, I don't like that, I don't care for that, that hurt my feelings. Like we feel like somehow we're supposed to tolerate everything if we're going to be a good girlfriend or a good wife. And I think even as a wife of so many years, it is good for people to hear your feelings on things even if they differ, because it does challenge them to grow. And if they don't know how you feel and you don't stand up for yourself and your feelings, they don't know that they need to change. I mean, really,
Yeah.
so they're just going along happy as, to say fat and happy, and not knowing that anything is wrong, because we're kind of um, pretending it's not there, or just, not addressing it at all because it's scary. It's
Yeah.
the leaving factor. Somebody can always leave. They can leave, and
Yeah.
not so much maybe for a long marriage, but they can leave, right? I mean,
Mm,
it could happen, and that could be something that I say that makes them go.
mm.
So you kind of have that
Yeah, that's
feeling.
so oh my gosh, so true.
So it
And
keeps you from sticking up for yourself, I think, a lot of times. The fear of losing your family, losing your husband, losing the security that you have, even in the relationship, a boyfriend relationship. Here you're connected, you have a boyfriend, you guys, you're a couple, which is what you want to be, and you will want to lose that. So is it worth this little thing, or is it worth
mm,
that little thing?
that's exactly how I thought. And
Yeah.
it's also crazy as you were saying this, I was also thinking like how crazy is it too that um and I can't speak for all women, but I feel like this is something that's very commonly shared amongst like my friends and when I've talked to you and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So I feel like it's kind of a more common experience as women to feel like you have to be the glue in the relationship.
Yeah.
Like he's just there, and we have to figure out how to like keep him and how to care for him and keep everything sailing smoothly. Like that's our job.
Yeah.
As if he doesn't have a part in that as well. Or as
Mm.
if he shouldn't also be, wanting to make sure that he's working things out um to keep the relationship steady and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like why is it just us that has that fear? Like we're the ones who have to make sure that we don't step on anybody's toes.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just an instinct, or if that's a nesting instinct, or what that is, but it does feel like you need to keep the peace all the time. Even people, like with my personality, I don't necessarily hold back when I say, but you still don't want to be have turmoil in the relationship still. But just keep the peace, and yeah, not don't stand up for yourself. Of
Yeah, I think that's the same thing. Well, and again, this isn't speaking for all women, and
course
this
not.
isn't speaking for all men.
Yeah.
Like
Never,
we're
never,
very
never,
aware
never.
that,
Yeah.
and there's a
This is
lot of
just
good
our
guys
own
out
this is
there.
all completely our own experience. Like
Yeah,
like we are not even trying to put anybody in a category. It's just
for
like,
sure.
this is how I feel, this is what I've experienced and gone through.
Yeah, and I mean, like I'm also very interested actually how that looks for people who are in like same sex relationship. I'm so curious about that aspect of it, and maybe if you've had that experience, you can talk about it in the comments. But I just feel like what like I wonder what the similarities and differences are, or if there is, because that in for somebody who's only been in heterosexual relationships,
Mhm.
I can only speak for kind of that mindset.
Right.
And I really do feel like when I enter into a relationship, I'm the one who has to, even if he hasn't necessarily made me feel that way, I feel like
It's
I
so
have
you take
to,
it on.
and I think that's
Yeah.
really a societal thing. Like I think that there's a lot of um society that tries to make it seem like women are the ones who make men stay. And I think that's such a hurtful way of thinking, and it can
Yeah.
be
You
it
mean whether they're good or like whether they are worth, let's see, like good women or to stay with? Like you have to be good enough to stay with to be worthy of staying with them. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I
Like it's our
mean,
job to be good, so we keep somebody,
I
or what
think
are you?
I
Like,
think the basics of what I'm saying is just that, like, women stay and men leave
mm,
is kind of the I think some of the hurtful ideology that goes around of
yeah,
like women are usually are more loyal or more this or more that, and men have more of an ability to just kind of cut people off. And that doesn't mean that that's true, but that's the problem is that
yeah,
that's kind of um what's put out there a lot, but is not necessarily true.
yeah. Well, I mean, I would say it's maybe not even true for me,
Mhm.
because that was one of those things that because of my personality and it was easy to leave. It
Mm,
was easy to leave because I didn't have to be hurt if I left.
mm,
So if I leave, I'm not hurt. If somebody else leaves me, that's different.
right.
So it just really depends on the personality of the person. I think yeah, just yeah. I think
It is. Well, and
the
that's
br-
what I'm saying though,
yeah.
is that it is about the personality. Like women can also be that way, but I think that what I'm talking about is just the fact that like I feel like there's a lot of pressure on women in relationships to be like the one who keeps everything
I would
copacetic.
say that's probably true.
And so regardless of your like personality
Yeah.
or how
Mhm.
you tend to be in relationships, because that is different for
Yeah.
everybody.
You're
Um,
right. It is. Yeah.
I
You're
feel like that tends to be a thing, and I think that um, there can be a lot of hurt surrounding that like stereotype or surrounding that kind of
yeah.
like um, surrounding that subject, because it really sucks to be the only one in a relationship who's trying.
It really does. That's very true. And I think that we tend to be a little more. See, we say we again. I personally, I think that I have worked on becoming self-aware and getting sober and all that kind of stuff. I think self-awareness is a big part of it. If you don't want to do that, then you don't want to do that in a relationship. You're not going to work on a relationship if you don't even want to work on yourself, right? So you're not going to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't wonder like if it has to do with not being enough though. When in the end we come out feeling not enough. And I think that that's probably across the board, men, women, whatever, that if somebody leaves you or you leave somebody, is it we're not enough, or is it what is that feeling?
So true. That's
Yeah.
exactly how I felt after my last relationship.
Yeah.
Because like not only was there just um a lot of baggage there, because I mean 2 years of dating somebody, you start to kind of have some pain
Yeah, you've
and some
been
things
through a
that
lot of things and some life together and stuff like that.
yeah. And so there was not only that baggage, but also um after he left, I was like, man, like I really don't feel like I was ever going to be enough for him. And it took me such a long time to kind of put myself back together from that and feel worthy of anyone
Yeah.
again. And I think I realized through all of that kind of pain, that I deserve somebody who's not just being my boyfriend, but somebody who treats me well. And
Right.
not just somebody who treats me well, somebody who treats me damn well. Like
That's
somebody who actually like puts effort and time
right.
into loving me and
You're
caring for
worthy of
me.
their time. You're worthy of their attention. You're worthy of their love.
And
Yeah.
how dare I go into a relationship with my tail between my legs and be like, well, like however he wants to treat me, like he's been hurt before, blah, blah, blah. Who cares?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. That was a little far. Just because you've been hurt before or you've been stung in past relationships or you've learned a pattern of how to like be in a relationship does not mean that it's right. That
No,
doesn't
it's
mean
not.
that it's
It's
like
not.
okay.
Yeah, and it is, and I think that that's actually a pretty good subject when it comes to relational hurt, because what baggage do you bring in with you? That what that other person comes in, and I think that maybe it's fair if we're talking about being hurt, and I don't know of is somebody bringing in. That's something to kind of consider too. What am I bringing into this new relationship, and what are they bringing into this new relationship? And what are things maybe we need to talk about given those circumstances? I know I should have done that a way a long time ago. Had those conversations of like, I know that was really hurtful for you. So if I was to act in any kind of way like that, that's going to trigger off some kind of a response in him because he's already been hurt in that area. I haven't been, so it's not going to feel that way to me, but to him it will, or vice versa. Does that make any sense?
That does make sense, yeah, and that's so true because, and I think, after kind of coming out of this, longer relationship with the most hurt I've ever been, um, romantically, I think that I realized that, like, th the next relationship that I'm in, this is going to be there are going to be things that I took from this that are going to be, um, issues or are going to be scars for me,
Right.
like wounds.
So your baggage to the next person that
Mhm.
you'll bring into the next, yeah, you have to address. And I feel like that's why the time in between is so important, and that whole rebound thing is really accurate because you leave one and you're still wounded from in whatever way you are, even if the relationship isn't that bad and you just go your separate ways, you still
Mhm.
have hurt that happens and you bring that to the next relationship. If you don't heal from that, you bring it right with you.
Yeah,
There you
it's
go.
it's true, and again, even if you have healed from it, it
Hmm.
can still be sore spots and that kind of
Certainly.
thing, which I personally believe is why it is so important to take that time
Yeah.
after breaking up with somebody to be like, okay, like self check, like, am
Yeah.
I okay?
Yeah.
What happened? Give yourself time to process. I
Yeah.
know for me, I'm a really slow processor, so it took me months to
Yeah.
even get to a point where I could accept the fact that um, I was deeply hurt and that in some ways I was wronged, you know?
Right. Right.
And I think it's easy to say like, yeah, what's in the past and like, I'm just going to forget about it. I am like not even going to care. I'm not even going to care that this happened. I'm going to show him like that I'm, moving on, don't care, like
Yeah.
whatever. And I think that's a great front,
Yeah.
but it is hiding a very wounded girl.
Yeah. And the reality of the relationship. There was more loss than just even that person. I mean, you had an idea, there was this might be the person I'm going to marry. I mean, there's a whole thing that goes with that you've also lost that.
Mhm.
You've lost, the holidays, the things that you expect, at some point you're going to be with somebody for.
Yeah.
So you've lost some dreams too, and along with the person, and then all the stuff that went with
Yeah, and
them.
you lose a friendship. And I
Yeah,
think that's
it's
what I
true.
mourned more than anything else
A friendship.
was the loss of a friendship, a loss
Yeah.
of somebody who I think if we would have just stayed friends would have
Yeah.
been a much better fit. I lost like somebody that I did really care about.
Yeah.
And it's hard to go from seeing that person all the time, you know that that person is your person, or you know what I mean, like is the not that we're claiming people here, but they're the first person that you go to in a group of people. They're the first person that you say hi to. It's
Right. You get
different.
excited when the phone rings and
You get
yeah,
excited when you
exactly.
hear them call you at night. Oh god, that really hurt me for a while because like I was so used to getting called, almost
Right.
every night.
Yeah, I know. You guys were on the
Um
phone all the time.
yeah, and then just that just stops
Yeah.
and it doesn't happen ever again. And now his number is also blocked. So it's like
Yeah.
that's never happening again.
Yeah.
And I think that's all of that adjusting to that. Again, yeah, even if they didn't, I mean, honestly, it's probably even worse or even harder if there wasn't like a lot of beef when you broke up
Yeah.
because then you're just like having to accept the fact that it just didn't work out and they
Yeah.
didn't do anything
So do
wrong
you think it feels like a failure on your part? Would you say a failure on your part, or would you just say the relationship just wasn't meant to be?
in my
Yeah,
specific
like how
relationship.
does it feel like that to you? Does it feel we're talking about, the feelings behind all of this, like when the relationship ultimately did not work, do you feel like that you failed in some kind of way? Or is that what you're coming to terms with? Is that you didn't fail in any kind of way? The relationship was broken and you were hurt in it.
Mm, I don't know if I ever looked at it as a failure on my part. I think I looked at it as I lost somebody I didn't want to lose
Mm,
and it must have been my fault. Because I and not that I but I didn't see it as like a failure, like, oh, like that makes it sound like I'm looking at it as, like, a performance,
Right,
but
right.
that's not really how I saw it.
Yeah.
Not that, some people do feel like a failure after a relationship, I can understand that, but
Yeah.
I think I more just felt like, "Gosh, if I had only loved him better,
Right.
if I had only
Right.
done more for him,
Mhm.
if I had been less argumentative that one time that he brought up something that made me mad,
Right.
if I hadn't been so bothered by some of the company that he kept, maybe we would still be together."
Right.
And I think as I was working through that process, or kind of working through those feelings, I realized like, but I had a point, you
Yeah.
know?
I wasn't wrong. I wasn't wrong.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that
Mhm.
that again that I didn't do anything wrong or whatever, but I also have to accept the fact that yeah, we're going to get into arguments
Yeah.
sometimes, and I was looking back initially after we broke up and being like, man, I should have just kept my mouth shut more. I should have just been kinder, nicer, more
Right.
go with the flow and less like combative against him.
Mhm.
But in the end, I was trying to stand up for myself, and I was
Yeah.
trying to stand up for how I felt and how I thought, and, I was trying to challenge him sometimes and be
Right.
like, "Hey, like, the way that you treat your friends sometimes is, like, not the best." And he would
Right.
get so mad at me,
Yeah.
but that was, that doesn't mean that first of all, that doesn't mean that's the reason why we broke up, but second of all, that's just part of being in a relationship.
It is. It's just disagreement, seeing things from different points of view or whatever. And I think that that goes back to, are you going to grow in the relationship, or are you going to just passively go with it? No, he didn't grow, and you're not growing if you just hold your tongue and don't say anything about things that you differ, things that you notice or whatever. It goes back to, you are worth being able to have your own opinion on something.
Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
amen. Absolutely, you're w and I think as I kinda came out of it, and I think you can attest to this, that after coming out of this relationship and kind of picking up the pieces and starting to put myself back together and, um, over a long period of time, like, learning how to be happy single,
Right.
learning how to be happy just with myself, and learning, like, the good things that I bring to the table and the things that, um, are definitely not so great.
Or the things that you have room to improve. Put it
Room
that
to
way. Yeah,
improve.
room
Yeah,
to improve.
that's a
It's
very
like,
sunshiny way of putting
it
that.
is. Well, you know me. I'm the sunflower in the whole.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, places where I need work.
Yeah. Keep
I
little
think
little
that
tweaking.
that's yeah. I think that that's, like, I think as I was kind of going through all of that and separating those things, I became a lot more, sure of what I wanted, a
Right.
lot more assertive, and a lot less willing to take other people's crap.
Yeah.
A lot less willing.
So in the end, it did teach you a lot. Like, you grew quite a bit, even though it was painful. Like, you grew through that pain into something that will now make you stronger in the future.
Yes.
Always seems to be that way. Always has to be the painful stuff that makes you grow.
Yeah. I have a question for you. Do you
Okay.
have like a relationship that maybe you were in um at whatever point in your life
Mhm.
um where like you guys were dating or whatever and then there was I mean obviously it ended cuz you're
'Cause I'm not
married.
married to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not married to them.
That's it.
Do you remember like a certain relationship where you walked away from it and you were like it was like the big breakup sort of
Yeah,
situation?
I do. I was wanting to get married at one point. I was probably about 22, and we were living together, and we worked kind of for the same company in a way. And he was from a different state, had a whole different um, upbringing, very, very quiet, very conservative, but a nice person, very, very nice person. But the things that we differed on, and it was like, I was going to have to be somebody else if we were going to stay together. I was going to have to be I was gonna have to do what you said and just go with the flow and let him it was gonna have to be his way, and it was gonna have to be that was gonna be it, or I'm not gonna be able to be me. And so I walked away from that relationship, even gave the ring back, all of that stuff, because I think that when we talk about, hurt in a relationship, like, if you are with somebody and you feel like you cannot be completely yourself and be loved that way, then you have got to consider whether that's the relationship for your forever person. And I think that it was in that particular relationship, that wasn't the case. Who I was needed in his mind needed to be changed a bit, and so. Just like how we were talking going in, we said, "Oh, like he's got some things." I think that in his mind, I had some things that I would be a good girl to be with as long as I could change a few things, and that's just not going to work out in the end because you have to feel good when you're with them and then you walk away. You have to feel good about yourself, and that wasn't the case. So it's kind of backwards maybe from what we're talking about, but same thing.
Oof. No, you said a lot of really good things there, though. When you first left that relationship, do you remember kind of how you felt, or did you feel like you were a failure? How did you process that?
I did. I felt really guilty because I was a really, really nice person. And at another time in my life, like right person, wrong time, if that makes any sense. I was just too young and he was not a lot older than me, but enough older that he was at a different spot in his life, like 4 years maybe, but 25, 26 is different than 22, as far as where you are in your lifetime and stuff. And so I felt a lot of guilt because I felt like I was letting other people down because, his parents, my parents, everybody, oh, he's such a nice guy. Why would you leave him? And that was true. He was a nice guy, but I did not feel loved for who I was in that relationship. So it was, that's how I had to go through a lot. And then I ping ponged to other people that were not so good for me, thinking I wanted somebody that was much different than that and finding out that that wasn't any better.
Yeah.
And not taking probably the long enough time to really figure out who I was in between. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There was so much.
That was
There's
a lot.
no, but that was so good though. That really makes me think. Like I'm thinking about so many different things because that there's so much wisdom in what you said.
Oh, thank you.
I've definitely dated. Well, I tend to date people who are older than me. Just it just tends to happen that
Mm,
way. But you're right when you say that like, I was 21 dating somebody who was like 28,
mhm.
and um in a lot of ways you're still in the same spot, and in other ways you are in completely separate atmospheres.
Yeah, it's true.
And he knew what he wanted a lot more, and I was still figuring that
Right.
out. And
Exactly.
so there was a lot of conflict there because I was like, I'm not really sure about that. I haven't made up my mind. And he's like, well,
Exactly.
I'm sure, and I need you to be sure.
Yeah.
And vice
Exactly.
versa, because there were certain things where I was more sure than he was. And in his head, he was like, well, I've just learned to accept that I'm not going to know about X, Y, and Z.
Right.
And I was kind of more in the camp of like, I haven't learned that yet.
Yeah, I'm
So
not there
tell
yet.
me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and I think that that's exactly what it was too. It was somebody that knew exactly what he wanted. He wanted a kind of traditional home, whatever, and I hadn't figured out yet. What
Mm.
did I actually want it to look like? I didn't know. I come from a divorced home. I don't have a picture of what that would look like. So we just had very different ideas of what that would look like.
Yeah, there's so many different things too that you don't realize until you're with someone for a little bit of time. Like, oh, that's something we haven't talked about yet, and
Yeah.
that might actually be a really big deal. And uh, I think I did feel this way in the moment, but I squashed those feelings because I wanted to stay with him. But I think in this relationship that I'm talking about, he would say something to me and it would hit like a red flag where I
Hmm.
was like, "Oh, that's something that we really don't agree on." And
Yeah.
not that we have to agree on everything, but it was significant enough, or the way he reacted to certain things. I was like, "Okay, I don't like that."
Yeah.
But and I wouldn't say anything about it because I was so scared that if I brought that up, because he was kind of the person to be like, "Well, then let's just break up." And
Yes.
it wouldn't bother him one bit.
Right.
And I am just not that way. And I
Mhm.
am always for like trying to fix it, trying to work on it, trying to like to to be to yes, we might not agree on everything or whatever, but maybe there's compromise in there. Like that's always my way of thinking. That was just not his.
Right.
So I was really afraid to confront him with a lot of those things where I was like, "Hey, it sounds like you and I very deeply disagree on really important things.
Yeah.
Kids, marriage, how he saw like in his head, marriage to him was she just follows me around
Right.
and I kind of like I talk to her about things and like yeah, we kind of make decisions together or whatever, but in the end, she goes
Where I
where I
go.
go.
Yeah.
And I was so in disagreement of that,
Yeah.
and I
Definitely.
wanted so badly to be like that is not okay with me, but I felt like if I said that, the whole thing would just fall apart. And you know what? It probably should've.
Yeah, it probably should have, and it might have.
So, like, he's the type that wants to, like, move all the time, and
Yeah.
he wants to be live in different states, and he wants to travel the world and all this kinda stuff, and, not that I don't think that that's interesting or that that's a bad goal to have,
No, not at all.
but
Wasn't what you
it's not
wanted your
me.
life
That
to look
is not
like.
me.
Yeah.
I am so happy staying in the same place,
Mhm.
in the same spot,
With the same
living my
people.
life,
Yeah.
going to the same 3 places all the time. Like, that I am so okay with that.
Yeah.
I wanted, like, a home, and he was like, "Oh, when we get married," while we were dating, he said this, not after we broke up. But when we were dating, he would say something like, "Oh, well, when we're married, like, we're gonna move every 2 years."
Yeah.
And I'd be like,
That ain't gonna happen.
"No, we're not."
Yeah.
Well, and also putting into consideration too, like, I mentioned this on last week's episode, but, I also have, like, health issues,
Right.
like,
Yeah,
I'm a
things
type 1 diabetic, like, I I can't just pick up and move and change doctors all the time.
right.
That's just not I mean, I could, but that's so much work,
It
and
is.
to feel
And to
like I
find
have
somebody that
to
you can trust and that knows your case and
in
knows you.
every
Yeah.
single spot that we move,
Yeah.
even if we're just moving cities, like, that would be so hard to do all the time, and that doesn't mean that I have to stay in the exact same spot my entire life,
Yeah.
but I
But
think
just
in
not all the time. Like
yeah.
every 2 years or whatever that would be.
And I
That
think
would be
in
a
his
lot.
head, it was a lot of it was just like, "It's not that big of a deal," you
Right.
know? "Who cares?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "But you're not seeing it from the perspective of, like, somebody who has more to lose." I
Yeah.
also didn't wanna be very far from my family, I didn't wanna be away from you guys
Exactly.
either. I didn't wanna move 5 states over.
Mhm.
Didn't feel like it.
Because you're more oriented towards family, and that goes back to what we were saying in the beginning. That
Mhm,
if you just want two different things, it's neither one of them are wrong.
mhm.
And you weren't wrong. He wasn't necessarily wrong.
No.
You guys were wrong for each other, most likely.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
and yeah, and same goes for my relationship that I was talking about. We were good. He was a good person. I was a good person, but we just at the time were not right for each other. You
Yeah, and I think,
know, having to
kind of
admit that,
yeah.
be okay with it.
Oh my gosh, it took me so long to even be able to say again that I thought that he was a decent person because
Yeah,
I was so hurt.
angry and hurt.
I was
Yeah.
so mad. Yeah, and to be honest with you, sometimes I still am. Sometimes I still do get very mad.
I don't think it all goes away overnight. I think that
No,
things
it
will
doesn't.
remind you here and there
Yeah.
of that.
I remember I was talking with a group of friends at one point and we were just kind of we were talking about our like past relationships and some of the hurt and um breakups and stuff and I was like I think forgiveness is just not linear. It's just not something where you forgive them once and then you're chill and you just keep going.
Yeah, not definitely
I
not.
have to wake up most days and re-forgive him for some of the things that he did
Right.
and some of the ways that he treated me that I was like, I did not deserve that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think that that goes for a lot of things too, where you it's an ongoing process of forgiveness. Where things are going to remind you, and you're going to be like, "Oh shoot, that made me so mad," and then, but I've chosen to forgive. I've chosen to forgive. It's not an easy thing to do for sure.
Yeah, it's so hard. Yeah, so I think no matter what, whether you end up getting married to this person or you end up being with this person or not, like there's always going to be hurt there and there's always going to be
Yeah.
pain like associated with it. And sometimes it's you can work through it and you also have to know when to call it. And I think that's
Yeah.
something that took me a really long time
Yeah.
to understand was
That's a really good point.
yeah.
Know when to call it, because there is people that you can work through. I mean, we've been married for forever, and we've been through a lot of things, but we still together. And that's because we were able to work through it, but doesn't mean we didn't argue through a lot of things, and fight through a lot of things. So
Yeah.
you're right. Is this worth calling or is this worth keeping?
Yeah,
That's a good question.
and I think part of what determines that is you really have to be strong in understanding and knowing this is what I'm worth
Right.
and this is what I'm worthy of. And is this something that is a disagreement where it's like, oh, we can move past it? Or is this something where it's like, I don't feel like I will be treated the way that I am
Right.
wanting to be treated?
What do they call, like, it's not a game changer, but there's a word.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about.
yeah, not a game
Deal
changer.
breaker.
Deal
A deal
breaker.
breaker.
A game
A
changer.
game changer. Deal breaker. I always
I
do
think
that.
game changer is more of a positive thing anyway. Like, oh, that's such a game changer.
Yeah, a deal breaker, because I think that, and being honest about that. Okay, that's a deal breaker. and I think that your brother has been really good about that. You know,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think,
really good about that. Like that's a deal breaker.
he was fantastic,
Yeah,
especially through um, this last like, having older siblings that you can talk to is so nice,
yeah,
because they've gone before you,
it's true.
and are able to kind of put some perspective on things, and something really wise that he actually told me when I was in the throes of this whole breakup, because, my ex wanted to be friends, um, but was also dating somebody else.
Right.
And so it was like he wanted to be friends, but like 2 months after we broke up, he decided he wanted to be in a new relationship, and I was so not in a headspace where I was okay with anything that was happening.
Hmm.
And in my head I was like, we dated for like 2, 3
Yeah.
years,
In the end.
and you're just moving on so fast and so easily.
Hmm.
Like, you didn't take any time to think about this, or
Yeah.
the time that you did take to think about this was just like, well, that sucked anyways, this new girl.
Yeah.
Like, that hurts.
Yeah. It
And
does.
he didn't understand why that would hurt me so
Yeah.
much, which just goes to show that, like, his kind of emotional understanding is his what is it called, emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
is not where I feel comfortable dating him, but also not where I feel comfortable being friends with him.
Yeah.
And so I remember when he was telling me, it was like, "Hey, just letting you know, like, I'm dating somebody else. Also, I want to stay friends with you. Like, let's be friends."
Yeah.
And when he initially said that to me, I was like, "Yeah, okay," and like trying not to cry.
Yeah.
Oh, and then also gave like a kind of a half apology of like, "Oh, and sorry, I was such a bad boyfriend." Like, I can accept that I was kind of a bad boyfriend.
Yeah.
And I literally said in that moment, I was like, "No, it's okay. No, it's not.
Mic drop.
It is not okay. Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
none of what happened, and
Yeah.
also this particular situation is not okay."
Yeah.
And
None of it.
so when and I was crying and crying and crying, and when I went to my older brother and told him everything, and he really reaffirmed some things in me of like, first of all, that was a terrible move on his part. Like, I don't know why he told you that. Like, what the good in that was.
Right.
Totally was not a smart decision to just to tell you that. But also he said something that I thought was so wise and that I still remember too when I feel like maybe I want to reach out to him. Like, maybe I want to
Right.
see how he's
That
doing.
little feeling of like,
Yeah.
oh, it's been long enough. Yeah.
Something that I remember is my brother just said, like, I'm like sitting on the floor in the hallway crying, and he was like, if if you want to be friends with him, or if you decide like, okay, I'm going to be friends with him, that's fine, but you are going to feel like this every time he comes around.
Right.
Every time that he decides that he like remembers that you exist and he's like, "Oh, let's like go out to lunch or whatever." You are going to walk away and you're going to feel just like
Just like
this.
this.
And I, I felt the worst um pain I have the worst like emotional pain I have ever felt um from a romantic
Hmm.
interest that I ever had. And so when he told me that, I was like, I don't think that I can stomach that.
I can't do that.
I can't.
Yeah.
And it gave me the motivation to be like, okay, then, and I let him know, like, hey, I'm not interested in being friends with you. Like, wish you the best,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
not interested.
Yeah.
And then just took him off everything so that
Yeah.
I didn't have to see
Yeah.
or
Just cut ties cleanly, and I think that was a really good decision. I think that was good advice, on his part for one, but also really brave of you to take that advice because it's always sometimes easy to keep your toe in it, just thinking, well, maybe something will change, and then you just hurt yourself along the way more, than because people. I think we have to accept that there's certain things about people that can change, and there's certain things about people that cannot change. That whole serenity prayer thing is like some things you just are just ingrained in people, and there's other things that you can adjust and change and compromise, I guess, is a good word. But yeah, there's other things that you got to just accept that either you want it or you don't.
yeah, and like walking through that hurt and
Yeah.
being comfortable with kind of being in pain,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
being willing to say, yeah, I'm hurt about this. And I think that was another piece of wise advice that I got from somebody who goes to our church, who was just she's so wise, and she was just saying, like, she was like, you can put up this like this front of, oh well, I don't need him, I don't need this, like, whatever, and I'm going to show him and all that kind of stuff, like
Hmm.
I was talking about before, um but in the end, you're keeping yourself from from healing, from actually healing, because
Right.
you're just hardening yourself. And whenever you decide to soften up, those feelings are still going to be there.
Yeah.
Um,
You can't ignore the stuff that's
yeah,
underneath. Yeah. True.
and she was like, "It's okay to be hurt. It's okay to
Yeah.
be sad, and it's okay that you're not ready to move on and he is.
Right.
All of that is okay. You don't have to feel like you have to get revenge on this person or show them that you can get into a relationship first, or
Right.
it's not a competition,
Right.
like we're going through completely different things and have two totally different personalities, and that's
It's true.
gonna
That was good advice too.
yeah. I have been lucky to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
surrounded with some really wise people.
Good friends and good siblings.
Yeah,
People that care about you too.
definitely. And you're a part of that category
Oh,
as well,
thank
because I'm
you.
sure I have dumped all of those feelings on you a million times. Like,
Well, I feel honored, honestly, that we have gotten to that point where you trust me with all of that, because that's not an easy thing to do. Like we were saying in the beginning, mother daughters. There's a kind of fine line between what do we talk
too
about and
much and
what's
just
too much
enough. Yeah.
information and what's just enough or whatever. But I think that like we're saying now that the feelings behind it are the same, whether I'm 50 something or you're 20 something. The feelings behind it are the same feelings we're all struggling with. Um, the pain that goes with the feelings, the disappointment that goes with the feelings and stuff like that are the same no matter how old you are. You know, when you're leaving a relationship or when you're in
Mm,
one, right?
yeah, so true.
Yeah,
So that's kind of our
yeah.
our whole spiel on kind of
It's our
relational
little
hurt.
yeah,
Yeah.
our little discussion of the day. Mhm.
Yeah, so let us know what you guys thought in the comments down below. Let us know some of your own personal experiences, how you felt about this, or if you've ever gone through something similar, or how you've dealt with past hurt.
Right.
We're talking specifically about romantic here, and I think
Yeah.
this can be like a series, throughout like all of the kind of episodes that we have
Yeah.
of occasionally talking about like relational hurt, but maybe in regards to family, or maybe in regards
Family's a
to
good one because
yeah,
especially
friends.
extended family, when friends and things like that. I think that sometimes those people become your sort of extended family, family that are friends and friends that are family.
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
exactly. So there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot that to be said here, but we wanted to focus specifically on romance this
Romance. Yeah.
time, just because there's definitely a lot to talk about
There
there.
certainly is.
Thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah.
Super
We
excited
need a
to.
trailer or an ending
I
too.
know.
We need an intro and an ending.
I'm still working on. I haven't even created our channel banner yet. Like
All right.
I'm we're working on
We
it,
got
but
work to
it's
do.
yeah, we're definitely like kind of slowly getting involved in this, but
Yeah.
hopefully you guys can be understanding of that,
Yeah.
and
Our
like
intentions are good.
they are, yeah. So there might be some mistakes and some things that happen, but hopefully you guys can
Yeah.
understand that like we're just very new to this.
We're
So
in the process. We're a work in progress.
we are a work in
All right.
progress. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.
Bye.